I'm realizing that as I get older in my old age,
Yeah,
right?
you are old.
And I'm realizing that sometimes it is like a lonely walk. Sometimes where, for instance, something that interests me is like audiobooks. So if someone asks me, hey, Dev, what do you like to do on the weekend, or what do you like to do for fun? I download an audiobook, and people will look at me like I'm crazy. But if that's what interests me, if that's what drives me, is to understand how other people think, innovation, imagination, etc., and that's what makes me happy, you know? And sometimes just doing those other things that are non-traditional or atypical, it can be like lonely. So have you ever felt that like you were just misunderstood, or maybe not, once again, not in a negative connotation, but you were just constantly in search of who you are, maybe?
You know, it's, again, another good question. And
Not to get all philosophical.
You called me rebel. That's awesome. I don't have to remember that one.
Rebel, rock star, you know, all in between.
There's certain phrases that I remember that at one point or another, somebody said these to me in a variety of different forums. And they said, you know, there are times you may feel lonely, but you're not alone. And those are, I think that's true with me to a certain extent. Thinking about where do I fit in? What do I do? How do I contribute? How do I help solve problems before they even become problems? You know, if you look at the great explorers and people that invented things, I would imagine that a lot of people looked at them and said, hey, this is a little outlandish, or you're doomed to failure. So I don't know if I ever truly felt lonely, because I knew there were people around that would support and encourage. But what it took for me was, this is what I'm thinking about. And just to get my feelings and my thoughts out of my head, you know, verbalized or written, to get somebody else to respond to. And sometimes they helped shape those ideas, made them more real for me, or gave me a path. Other times they kind of said, no, you can't do it, which in a strange way, if I was very motivated, made me want to do it more.
The rebel. Right.
Yeah. I guess I am a rebel.
Maybe just a little bit. I think sometimes we put the negative connotation on it because we don't follow the rules. And I'm not going to say all rules are meant to be broken. Never. Devin Alden never said that all rules are meant to be broken. But I do think limits are meant to be pushed.
Yes.
And we talked about this off camera. Maybe it was on camera. Off camera. And that's how the innovation comes about.
Sounds like we're going to be talking about it both on camera and off camera.
Definitely. So how did you know when to switch gears from the typical or the more traditional roles to the non-traditional roles? Like, was it the mentors that told you, like, okay, at this time, I recommend you do this while you're in your 20s or 30s, or did you just know it was an internal clock?
I think it was a little bit internal, but I attribute a lot to my parents.
Gotcha.
My father, when he was a machinist, he actually owned his own machine shop. All right. Now, that doesn't mean that we were well off or anything along those lines. You know, a whole group of boys, we passed down shoes and shirts and you name it. The oldest boy cut the hair of the younger ones, things like that. There's a lot of mouths to feed. But I think he instilled this entrepreneurial spirit in me. When I went to business school, I learned some things about family history and the linkage between if a parent or a grandparent is entrepreneurial, what the likelihood that their children is. And I think that's where I got that from. I found myself in an environment, though, in academia, where when you surround yourself with, you know, instructors, teachers, professors, people that are advisors along those lines, they do steer you along a traditional path, although it is pushing boundaries, because there's evolution and developments in healthcare.
Okay.
I kind of would like, okay, well, if we do that, how do we bring in technology? How do we bring in this? How do we bring in that? What's the role of the government? What's the role of this? And it's kind of like, can we push it a little bit further? So I like what you're saying. So maybe I was a little rebellious. I don't know.